I'll admit, I honestly didn't expect the level of difficulty, the level of complexity that I have gotten out of Girls Frontline. I'd anticipated it being something akin to Azure Lane, with all of the comparisons that I've seen made between them. On the contrary, I feel as though, with the exception of a few similar features, this is such a contrasting departure from Azure Lane, which I feel is a good thing, as it helps set it apart as opposed to being a clone of, and subsequently living in the shadow of a game that is just much more popular. But just because something is more difficult, just because something is different, doesn't mean that it's better. Hey, my name is Stix and welcome back to another episode of Worst Gacha Ever, a video series where we play through every single gacha game and proceed to analyze what the game does right and what it does wrong, based off of my experiences within it over a period of time. If you enjoyed this series, make sure to like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification because YouTube told me that if you don't, well, you're not going to get that waifu that you've been rolling for. And make sure to check out the last episode in this series at the end of the video. Before we go any further though, I do want to give a quick shout out to all of our patrons over on Patreon. While this channel is technically monetized due to the nature of a lot of the content, Patreon allows for me to at least make something off of these videos, so kudos guys, you guys rock. Upon first inspection, I was under the impression that Girls Frontline shared quite a few similarities with Azure Lane. It just felt a little more dated and with a lot less appealing waifus. For reference, Girls Frontline was released all the way back in 2016 and Azure Lane was released in 2017, but after putting 2 to 3 hours into the game initially, I quickly came to realize that that assumption was very, very wrong. Now, I have been playing Girls Frontline for the last 2 weeks now, and I can say with 100% certainty that this is easily the most difficult gacha game that I have ever played. Not only are the systems a little more complex than I'd imagined they'd be, but every single battle consists of enemies that are just so much more powerful than I seem to be, regardless of whether or not I significantly overlevel or overpower them. As an example here, Chapter 5, Episode 4, Safeguard Retreat. This has a recommended strength of 7,000, with enemies ranging from 2,200 to 4,400 strength themselves, which realistically shouldn't be an issue given my most powerful unit has a combat effectiveness of 6,800. Yet, after 3 skirmishes with the enemy, half my team is either approaching withdrawal or already abandoned the encounter. Deploying other units that I've been working on aren't much help because they're just drastically inferior in terms of power to my main. Given I've been pouring every resource I have into my main, meant that I didn't have much in the way left to boost my other units, my other teams. And don't get me wrong, I was making sure to enhance my characters, to upgrade their skills, to utilize the dummy link, level them, but at no point after Chapter 3 did the game ever feel easy enough to fully clear it with an S rating without the use of other players' units. And I know you're sitting there thinking to yourself, is Stix complaining about the game being too hard? Or, I can't believe he missed utilizing X feature, when the reality is, I'm not complaining at all. I actually found the stark contrast in difficulty highly refreshing. It wasn't as simple as just auto-battling, auto-playing through the game with relative ease, and honestly, I probably did miss a feature or two that could have boosted my character a little, but even the utilization of friends units with heroes that were already level 80 in Chapter 5 left them damaged at times, which goes to show how truly difficult and unforgiving this game is. So Girls Frontline is an anime strategy RPG. Players control echelons of android characters known as T-Dolls. Each doll falls under one of several different class archetypes. We have handgun users, submachine gun users, shotgun users, assault rifle users, and machine gun users. Each archetype has their own advantages and disadvantages. As an example, handgun users have some of the worst base HP of any doll, as opposed to submachine gun users who have fantastic HP. Both happen to have terrible damage, unfortunately, as opposed to the rifle or the machine gun, which both excel in damage but fail in almost every other aspect, such as accuracy or evasion or fire rate. Each archetype also has the option of providing beneficial buffs to your team. Handguns boost all T-Doll types, submachine guns boost assault rifles, with assault rifles boosting submachine guns, rifles boost handguns, machine guns boost shotguns, with shotguns boosting machine guns. Finally, your formation plays a vital role in your overall survivability, which I learned the hard way. Dolls placed in the very far right column are going to be targeted more frequently than any other space, so in an ideal world, you'd keep handgun units far from the front lines. This provides a lot of unique opportunities to create interesting team compositions based around a singular type of gameplay. Since we've already delved into what T-Dolls are and how they function, let's talk how we play with them. Let's talk about how we use them to however I say this continues to just sound so wrong. So, okay, the game primarily focuses around the narrative, a metric ton of chapters, each with their own story, their own characters, their own environments. Each chapter has various different missions, and each mission takes the form of a singular map, with a command post to deploy your main unit, and various heliports to deploy additional units, whether those units are alternate echelons that you've been slowly building up, or backups from friends. After deploying your units, you move around a grid, horizontally, vertically, diagonally. You have a limited number of spaces that you can move per turn, and can capture one single node per unit per turn. The enemies move in much the same way, a single node per turn, and whatever node they land on, they occupy, unless you possess a unit on that node yourself or circle the node. To capture a node, you need to have already captured an adjacent node, with the exception of the enemy command post. All you need to do to capture an enemy command post is to land a unit on it and end the turn. Each mission has several grading conditions that need to be met. Bronze medals, which involve pretty much just capturing the command post, silver medals, which consist of capturing all the nodes on the map, and gold medals, which involve eliminating X amount of targets in Y number of turns. Accomplishing all three medals allows you to unlock auto combat, which allows you to deploy your units automatically, accumulating a large amount of XP, dolls, and other goodies. Additionally, clearing each chapter unlocks more difficult, for lack of a better word, difficulties. Normal completion unlocks emergency, and then there are night battles. The combat itself is automatic. You deploy your units, you select where you want them to go, and then you watch them unload everything onto enemy units, hoping for the best. As noted earlier, the chapters escalate from being really easy to incredibly difficult very quickly. And if you're like me and have no idea what you're doing at the time, randomly using all of your resources to attempt to farm levels, wasting all your dummy cores on linking 5-star T-Dolls, only to realize that you have a very limited number of cores at your disposal, then you'll find yourself in quite the pickle. Which left me having to use real money to acquire additional resources and to try and get a little ahead. Sure, I made use of logistics support as often as I could, but realistically, that only allows for so much when you're burning through as much as I was on auto battles. So there is a narrative present in the game, a story that pushes the game forward, that provides meaning and purpose for you, for your dolls. This is the focus of the game, but there's so much more than just the main story, even though that's where I spend most of my time trying to slowly make my way through, amongst attempting to and failing to micromanage my resources. Let's just take a minute here to work our way down the menu that we can see on screen. We have our base. The base provides us access to the intelligence center, the garage, the ferry chamber, and the protocol control center, which are all locked at present, the data room, which functions as a means with which to manage your EXP gained from battle and convert it, the forward base camp, which allows you to send out your dolls on expeditions, the rescue station, an area where dolls can look after various different stray animals that you come across, the cafe, which is a place to just, chill, to participate in some cool little side activities that have no real effect on the game otherwise. And finally, the dormitory itself, where your dolls live. Admittedly, as is evident by what you see right now, I really haven't done anything with this. All my waifus are just kind of coexisting there on some boxes. I like to think of myself as a minimalist. Well, that and Mrs. Stix never fixed up my room. So if you're gonna blame anyone, blame her. And that's it for the base. Next we have the research tab, where you can upgrade skills of your various T-dolls, and admittedly a few other things that I still haven't unlocked, and guys, don't judge me for that, okay? Because I know, Stix, if you unlock those, you might have been more powerful and had less trouble with, I know. But honestly, engaging in every gameplay mode I could, never unlocked any of those, and with my limited time, I didn't want to seek out exactly how to go about unlocking them. Plus, at the same time, I was playing through not only Counterside, but also Artery Gear Fusion, which admittedly were both a lot more fun for me, so I had to split my time, and they just took precedence. Then we have the factory, where you can create T-dolls, which use a variety of different resources, in-game resources, mind you, so be careful. This was one of the ways that I found I was most quickly depleting my resources early game, and I wish that at the time that I had known how difficult resources were to replenish in the short term. Next we have the dummy link, which functions as a means with which to increase the stats of your dolls exponentially. These either cost duplicate dolls or use dummy cores, getting increasingly more expensive per upgrade, but also being an absolute necessity for your character's survival. Then we have the T-doll enhancement, allowing us to sacrifice our dolls to power up more important ones. Just don't tell them why we're actually sacrificing them. Otherwise, we might start some kind of revolt. Retirement disassembly should be relatively self-explanatory. Equipment production functions just like the creation of our dolls. Instead of creating dolls, however, we create gear, which half the time we can't equip because of RNG constantly producing gear for units that you just don't have in your core group. Dolls can equip gear that are specific to their class archetype in the form of accessories, magazines, and well, admittedly something else once you unlock it at level 80, which unfortunately I have not reached yet. There's the repair station, which is important as your units don't automatically heal themselves after battle. Rather, they take mass amounts of damage and then they just run away. Oh, you know what? Speaking of, one of the greatest parts about Girls Frontline, as your units continue to take damage, their gear continues to break down, revealing, well, admittedly an interesting design choice. Rarely do units possess two separate models, one for when they're full HP and one for when they're damaged, but you know what, here we are, and it's absolutely fantastic. I feel like at times it's almost not worth even repairing them. And then I remember how difficult the game is. Then we have combat. Combat missions function as the main game mode. This is where chapters and missions are located. There are countless chapters to slowly progress through, and a number of missions for each chapter. These get alarmingly more difficult after chapter 3, so prepare wisely. Then we have logistics support. These allow you to deploy units on support missions, rewarding players resources to actually continue playing. Chapters are unlocked as you continue to unlock them via combat missions. Combat simulation provides alternate game modes that consume sim energy to play through. These are very different, with completely separate objectives to what is normally found within combat missions. And then we have campaign missions. Suffice it to say, all of these function the same. They're all a single map with a group of enemies that you need to overcome, just with different objectives, with different rewards and different requirements. Naturally, there are event stages, there are event rewards, the cash shop, which, you know what, admittedly seems pretty fair. Browsing through, I didn't come across anything that didn't provide at best a quality of life improvement. One thing I was very pleased with though, and this is something that I haven't touched on yet, is the gacha system. I noted above that you could produce T-dolls, and that T-doll and equipment production costs in-game resources. What this means is that there is no premium currency required to pull for waifus. Every waifu is recruited purely in-game, with farmable resources being the only thing necessary to obtain them. And the rates aren't even bad. 2-star dolls have a 60% rate, 3-star dolls have a 27% rate, 4-star dolls have a 10% rate, and 5-star dolls have a 3% rate. given you can essentially recruit those indefinitely without limitation. Other than the resources you have available to you, I feel like this is more fair than what is present in most gacha games, requiring you potentially spend hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars to acquire the husbando or the waifu that you've been waiting for. And then to upgrade them, you need dupes, which means tens of thousands of dollars, or waiting for a reroll banner in a year or two. Overall, there is quite an overwhelming number of things to do in Girls Frontline. There was quite a bit more than I had unlocked at the time I was playing through it, and while some of the game most definitely feels unintuitive and much more dated when compared to gacha games released in 2022, I found the difficulty, the depth of various class archetypes, and the fairness of its gacha system to definitely set this quite a bit above most mobile games that I have played over the last several years. Sure, it felt like it took a little longer having to manually navigate maps with all of my units individually, but I've never been against actually being required to physically play the game that I have in my hands. So, while autoplay wasn't really very prevalent in the game, I feel that is for the most part a positive, much like in Azure Lane. It's refreshing to be able to pull for waifus without a premium currency and be given the opportunity to play through chapters and missions without stamina, as entry was only limited by the resources you had at your disposal. Don't get me wrong, the lack of explanation and overwhelming number of features definitely left me feeling like an idiot, even after I was done playing it. And I know many of you are going to complain that I forgot X feature or Y mechanic down in the comments below, but I feel like from a casual perspective, this is a very difficult game to get into. Is Girls Frontline the worst gacha game of 2022? Not at all. It's definitely not as aesthetically appealing as many of its competitors. It's overflowing with features that you have to micromanage, and the difficulty is unparalleled. But it offers players a unique, manual experience filled with fair gacha, a decent narrative, a lot of opportunities to roll for waifus and gear. You really couldn't ask for more. Now, if you're looking for the previous episode in the Worst Gacha Ever series, you can find that via this video right here, or if you're looking for a list of confirmed gacha games coming this year, then this video right here is for you.